At the end of the road stood a small house, struggling against the relentless assault of the rain. Ayub pointed to it. That's it, the wise man's house. He knocked on the door with such force that it seemed he was trying to break it down. May the heavens curse your fingers for knocking like that, came a voice from inside. Is this the wise man's house? Ayub called out. The door opened to reveal a tall, thin man in his late 40s, with unkempt hair that made him look like a worn-out broom. His beard resembled a goat's, and his clean-shaven upper lip made his nose appear unusually large. Yes, this is the wise man's house, he said. And you're the wise man, right? No, his wife. The man snapped sarcastically. Now stop wasting my time. What do you want? He wore a long green robe, held a large book in his left hand with the title The Interpreter engraved on its cover, and a lantern emitting a faint hiss of light in his right hand. Who are you? He asked, holding the lantern closer to the boy's face. And what's a kid like you doing here at this late hour? I came to take you to see my mother. She's sick. Come inside until the storm eases. Then we'll go. Asterisk, the wise man said begrudgingly. He muttered under his breath. May the heavens punish these mothers who let their kids wander out in such dangerous weather. Don't talk about my mother that way, the boy retorted. Realizing he had hurt the boy's feelings, the wise man apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Come inside while we wait for the rain to calm. She didn't let me, the boy whispered, seeming to accept the apology. She was asleep when I left. To convince the wise man to go with him immediately, the boy described his mother's condition in detail, how she didn't speak, how her heart had completely stopped beating, and how a blue aura surrounded her pale face. After hearing the boy, the wise man had no doubt that the boy's mother wasn't sick, but already dead. As a gesture of condolence, he set his book and lantern aside, rolled up his sleeves, and said, All right, you reckless child, I'll come with you. Take me to her. The two had barely walked a few steps under the rain when the wise man exclaimed, pointing ahead with his finger. By the heavens, I didn't know we had gorillas in our village. Ayub objected. I am not a gorilla. It talks, said the wise man as he grabbed the boy's hand and started pulling him back toward the house. Talking gorilla, the boy shouted. This is my friend Ayub, and he's the one who helped me reach you. Its name is Ayub? I am not a gorilla, Ayub said angrily. The wise man approached him, as if inspecting him, and said provocatively, By the heavens, you even look like one up close. You have a sharp tongue, wise man, and other things too. Want to see them? Ayub stepped closer and said in a threatening tone, If the boy didn't need your help, I'd teach you a lesson in manners. The wise man replied in the same tone, If gorillas weren't so rare, I'd kick your wet behind. The boy stepped between them, ending the quarrel. Let's go quickly. My mother is sick. One Friday night, just past midnight, with the rain still pouring heavily outside, the wise man spoke in a sorrowful tone, as if apologizing on behalf of fate, to the boy who stared at him, awaiting the test results. She's gone. The boy, not understanding the meaning of death, repeated innocently, Gone? Your mother passed away yesterday, little one. Because he loved his mother so much, he could never imagine, even in his worst nightmares, losing her. He couldn't grasp what the wise man said, and assumed that his mother might have a disease called death. The boy left the room for a while, and when he returned, he was holding some coins in his hands. Take this, he said, extending them toward the wise man. It's all the money we have. In astonishment, the wise man asked, And what do you want me to do with all this money? Heal her, the boy whispered, pleading. Heal her from death. The wise man felt he should never have agreed to come with the boy in the first place. He thought of leaving and going back to his house, but decided he wouldn't leave before uncovering the serious secret he had just discovered. Where's your father? Don't you have a grown man to take care of you here? Ayub will lead you to him. You want me to go alone with that scary man? I can't leave the house. What if my mother wakes up and needs me? The wise man almost shouted at him, telling him that his mother would never wake up again. He wanted to teach the boy the scientific meaning of death, but he chose not to be the one to shatter the child's dreams. Meanwhile, Ayub, who didn't yet know about the tragedy inside, rushed toward the wise man as soon as he saw the house door open. Did everything go well? Is Jumana all right now? That woman wasn't sick to begin with. She was dead, but he told me that that boy knows nothing. The wise man interrupted impatiently, then added, He's a fool who thinks his mother's heart decided to take a little rest, and that it might start beating again at any moment. Ayub, with horror climbing into his voice, asked, So, what should we do? You need to hurry and bury her. But before that, I need to meet her husband. Ayub felt uneasy about the wise man's request and asked hesitantly, You want to meet Bar? The wise man nodded and explained, There is something her husband must know. Something? He asked, bewildered. Like what? I can't tell you. It's professional ethics, you know. Understood, Ayub replied. Walking? All right, "Come on, I'll take you to him. Are we going to travel far in this rain again?" "Yes, we won't reach him before sunrise," said the wise man. "In that case, I can set aside my ethics," he added. "I'll tell you the secret on one condition. You must pass it on to her husband later." The wise man revealed that through his examination of Jumana's body, he discovered that her death was not natural but caused by severe poisoning that shut down her vital functions. What made matters worse was his belief that the poisoning was neither accidental nor coincidental. He suspected someone had deliberately poisoned her. "We are dealing with a premeditated murder," he declared, announcing his final findings. At that moment, Ayub realized that the Jatham organization had somehow reached Jumana and killed her after hearing about Bar's visit to his family and Jumana's attempt to uncover the truth. The wise man interrupted Ayub's train of thought. "And there's something else." "What?" "Jumana. What about her? She's not human." Meanwhile, the child sat beside his mother, anxiously waiting for her condition to improve. When he heard the sound of the house door being smashed, he went to investigate. He saw his father standing silently in the middle of the courtyard, with Ayub standing beside him. From their expressions, the boy understood that something terrible had happened. He tried, as he always did, to stop his father from entering the room, but Bar struck him hard on the head with the edge of his hand, knocking him unconscious. When Bar entered the room and saw the pale, bluish face of his wife, he knew the wise man had been right about the poison. "Come, Ayub," he called to his friend. Ayub tried his best to avoid looking at Jumana's body, as if he didn't want his memory to retain the image of her lifeless form. He approached his friend and offered his condolences. "Love is a magnificent gift that life grants us only once. I know your loss is immense, but only time, my friend, will ease your pain," he added. "You might find my words harsh now, but one day, time will prove them true." Bar leaned down to place a farewell kiss on Jumana's forehead, gently closed her eyes with his hand, and said, "You say this because you've never experienced love, Ayub. Nothing in this world eases the pain of separation. We carry them in our hearts, remembering them even when we lie dead in our graves." Covering his wife's body, he added, "Let the women wash her and have the village men prepare her for burial." Ayub asked, "Won't we join them in the burial?" Gripping the hilt of his sword, Bar replied, "No, we have a score to settle with the Fong of the elephant. Are you planning to fight him? Do we have another choice? But you know standing against him is suicide. You can still withdraw. I told you before, the black man never abandons his friend. Then why do I sense fear in your words? I'm not afraid. I just want to understand your plan. We will head west to the Forbidden Mountain Range to seek help." "You mean the tribes of the Braves?" Ayub asked in astonishment. "Their princess owes both of us a great favor, and she's the only one who can stand with us." And so, Bar and Ayub mounted their horses and headed west to the farthest borders of the kingdom, toward the Forbidden Mountain Range, where the sun of Ababil sets behind it. They went to seek the help of the brave tribes for the coming battle, not knowing what kind of surprise awaited them on the way. When the effects of the blow on the child's head wore off, he opened his eyes to find himself lying in the courtyard. The first thing he did was enter the room where his mother used to rest. When he didn't find her, he felt a brief joy, thinking she had recovered and finally gotten up. "Mom," he called out, "Mom." But when he didn't find her, he realized he was wrong. She wasn't well, and something serious had happened, though he didn't know what it was. He opened the door and began searching for her outside. Despite it being midday, the village of Al-Jassasa was eerily empty. While searching, he stumbled upon an elderly woman known as the one with the red bird. She was barefoot, draped in black, and grief was evident on her face. "Don't worry, I'm with you," she whispered, extending her arms toward him. The boy ran toward her, not to embrace her, but to strike her with his shoe. Before he could reach her, he felt something sharp, like iron pincers, grab him from behind and lift him into the air. The phoenix bird had seized him in its talons and flown toward the cemetery of Al-Jassasa. When it reached there, it released him, letting him fall to the ground. The boy quickly got up to hurl his shoe at the bird but stopped, not because the phoenix had disappeared from sight, but because he saw something in front of him he had never seen before. There was a large number of men walking toward one spot, carrying on their shoulders a wooden structure resembling a bed. On it lay a motionless body, covered in black cloth, exuding the strong scent of jasmine. "Mother," he said as he stared at the coffin. "Mother," he repeated softly, as if he were trying to wake someone from their sleep. "Mother," he said a third time before breaking into tears. The scent of jasmine left no room for doubt. That thing the men were carrying on their shoulders was none other than the body of his mother, Jumana. For a fleeting moment, he thought they were stealing her from him. Like a Mongol warrior, he attacked ferociously, ramming their solid bodies with his head, biting their sweaty legs that tasted sour like vinegar, dust, and hair. He even sprawled in front of them to block their path, but none none of his attempts succeeded. Then he thought of another way to stop them. While frantically searching for a solution, he accidentally kicked one of the men in the groin with his shoe. The man fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Seeing this, the boy wiped his tears with his sleeve and smiled. He had found the way. In a very short time, he managed to knock down 15 men by repeatedly targeting that sensitive spot. When his actions became a real obstacle to the funeral procession, the men placed the body aside and began chasing him. Each one clutched their belt line to shield themselves from his cunning blows. After half an hour of relentless pursuit, they finally caught him. To prevent him from interfering again, 5 of the men volunteered to tie his limbs until the burial was complete. As he lay bound, watching the men bury his mother, something strange happened. The clamor of voices around him suddenly faded. He heard only one voice echoing as if coming from beyond the clouds. It was his mother, Jumana, speaking to him. "Don't cry, my little one. I may leave you now, but we will meet again in the heavens one day. Agreed?" Then her voice disappeared, and the noise of the men returned to his ears. He watched them with utter despair as they piled soil onto her. In that moment, he could feel every grain of sand falling on her as though they were burying him alive. Despite the swirling dust stinging his eyes, he kept them open the entire time, not blinking even once. When Jumana was completely buried and out of sight, the 5 men and the others, no longer worried about his interference, untied his limbs. Yet he didn't move from his spot. All he did was scream toward the grave. "No, we didn't agree." The harsh shock, the grief, the solitude, and the relentless blaze of the sun, all of it combined to make him collapse unconscious on the ground. Jumana was gone, leaving him without a safe haven. In that single moment, he aged 1,000 years. After all, every child grows old in an instant when they lose their mother.